Welcome to Solar Oregon's How to Go Solar and Storage workshop. My name is Nicole, and I am a program manager at the nonprofit Solar Oregon. This is a reoccurring workshop that we've been delivering to home and business owners across our state for years. We work to provide you, as a customer, with information you need to make good and informed choices as you explore solar and/or battery storage. So, thank you all for joining us today. Today, we're going to be covering the basics of how solar works. We're going to look at the components in a system, learn about a process called net metering that allows you to get credit for the energy that you export to the electrical grid, and see how solar can save you money on your energy bills. We'll also look at how solar contractors assess your home to see if it's right for solar. We'll see common issues with potential sites that can increase the cost of solar installation or might prevent you from going solar. We'll also discuss the topic of energy storage and see how batteries can allow you to use power when the grid is down. After that, we'll also talk about current incentives, and then we'll also talk about the installation process. After the presentation, we'll also have a Q&A session as well. So as we're going through the workshop here, feel free to put any questions that you have in the Q&A box. We're going to be using the chat to put in resources and links that we will be referencing throughout the presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and put those helpful links in the chat now. And just like I said, go ahead and put any questions you have in the Q&A. If they go in the chat, they just might get missed. So yes, and feel free to add them throughout the presentation here. So a little bit more about Solar Oregon. We're a 501c3 nonprofit that has worked to encourage solar and storage adoption throughout Oregon since 1979. And we do this by providing reliable and impartial consumer education like this workshop here today. We also work to build a clean energy community, work with volunteers across the state, and perform outreach as well as some policy advocacy. Other examples of the work we do are solar tours, uh, our Zero Energy Homes Tour, which is coming up on October 4th. And we also do expert panel discussions. We have a monthly green energy series, and I believe the next one is going to be on induction cooking. So tune in the first weekend in August to learn about induction cooking. We also help with Solarize campaigns as well. This workshop series is supported by Energy Trust of Oregon. Energy Trust is an independent nonprofit that was established in 2002, and it provides resources to help customers of investor-owned utilities in our state to use energy efficiently and also gain access to renewable energy. They offer key incentives for solar and battery storage. We'll talk a little bit more about those incentives later in the presentation. So thank you, Energy Trust. And for more info, you can check out energytrust.org or go ahead and scan that QR code to learn more on their website. All right, we'll jump right into how solar works. So this is a basic diagram of a grid tied system. So that means that you are still connected to the utility grid in your area, whereas off-grid would be you are not connected to the utility. So in this grid tied system, you can see that you would have some type of solar panel. Those could be ground mounted or roof mounted, and sometimes they're referred to as photovoltaic or PV panels. And those would go ahead and convert the sunlight that hits those panels into voltage of electricity. And then that electricity would go to an inverter, a microinverter. And this inverter or microinverter would convert the direct current electricity to AC or alternating current electricity that is used by the outlets and appliances in your home. So that electricity flows to your electrical panel. When we talk about battery storage, we'll also talk about how you would choose what circuits in your electrical panel to back up. And then in this diagram here, if you don't use all the electricity that you have produced because you're a grid tied system. You actually can send it back, the extra energy back out onto the grid. And you would have a special utility meter when you get solar, and it's called a bidirectional meter, and that will measure the flow of electricity that you send out to the grid. And also in times maybe where your solar is not producing enough, if it's cloudy or rainy, um, you could also pull from the grid as well, and it'll measure what you use from the grid. So we talked about inverters and micro inverters in that diagram here, but here is just a photo of what a string inverter looks like. Here is in the white box that would be connected to all of your PV panels. And then the smaller black box on the back of a panel, that would be a microinverter, an example of a microinverter. And those are usually connected to 1 to 3 panels. Um, Microinverters and inverters both work in our state. It just depends how your system is configured. And then some installers might specialize with a particular type of setup if they're using certain brand inverters or panels or batteries. Also, to be ready for solar, you might need to look at your electrical panel and make some upgrades. You need to consider your home size and your energy consumption when you connect with a contractor and they review what your plans are for your home and look to um, draft a quote for you. They'll also be looking at your energy consumption by reviewing your old electric bills so they can see how much energy you use. And then older homes tend to need electrical upgrades. And if you're planning to add other electric appliances or an EV, you'd want to tell your installer that so that they can take that into consideration when planning your design for your solar. You can mount the panels either on a roof or on a ground mount. Ground mounted systems could be an option if you have a little bit more land available, but you still do have to connect those PV panels to the rest of your system. So it can be expensive since you would have a little bit more conduit runs there to connect the wires to your home. And then if you are going to be grid connected or grid tied, um, you would be on net metering. If you were a PGE, Pacific Power customer, it's a 1-to-1 net metering rate. So just to share, net metering is a process that allows you to account for the energy that you export so that you can gain credit for it. And so the credits that you gain will show up on your energy bill, and we'll show an example of that in the next slide. But just to show an example of a summer month here and a winter month, you can see that, when in the summer we have more access to the sun, so you could produce more with your solar. And then anything that you're producing above what you consume at your home would go back out to the grid, and you would get net metering credits for that energy export. And then maybe in the winter, like I said, if it's rainy or cloudy, you might need to pull a little bit more from the grid to meet your consumption needs. And so because you're grid tied, you can still do that and go ahead and pull energy from the grid. Um, Something that's important to know with net metering is that the net metering year starts on April 1st so that you can build up credits in the sunniest months of the year and build up credits that you can access in the winter when your solar is producing less. At the end of the net metering year, so in March, any credits that you do not use will actually get donated to low income customers who are on that utility grid. So it's just important to remember that the net metering year starts in April, ends in March. So Month to month, your credits will roll over so you can keep accessing those, but at the end of the net metering year, any remaining credits you haven't used will be donated to low-income customers. And so it's really important when you consider your system to look at your consumption so that you're sizing your system in a way that you are producing enough to meet your needs, but you're not overproducing a ton, um, and then have oversized your system. So this is the example energy bill. This is a PGE customer. And here you can see that you're going to have a net consumption meter reading and excess generation meter reading at the start and end of your billing period. And in this example, the customer actually generated more electricity than they consumed. So they have a net usage of negative 327 kilowatt hours. And so, because they produce more than they use, that amount of kilowatt hours is going to be credited on their year to date bank, which you can see in this example. So, that excess generation gets added to the credit bank, and then you can pull from those um, the next month um, and be able to access those credits. So we're going to jump right into how your home is assessed to see if solar can be installed on your home or business. The first thing that you need is access to the sun and the sunlight. So solar access is really important. This diagram shows home with respect to the cardinal directions, and because of where we're located here in Oregon, the sun is mostly in the southern sky, so oftentimes solar is installed on south-facing roofs. They can also be installed on east and west-facing roofs, but usually solar is not installed on the north-facing roof. If you have shade, that could impact how much solar access that you have available for a solar system here. So it's not ideal to have a ton of trees if you want to go solar, but trees have a lot of other great benefits. So there could be other options. Maybe you have another building on your property that you can install solar on that has more access to the sun. Or perhaps you have some space or land where you could do a ground mounted system. Um, and contractors can assess your solar access by looking at satellite software that looks at how much sun your roof has access to throughout the year. And they also may come out on site and do a measurement as well. So if you have trees, that's okay. It just might impact your ability to go solar. And if for some reason you have too much shade and you can't go solar, there is community solar in our state. There is a community solar program. It's Oregon Community Solar, and there are a couple different programs through there where you can subscribe to a solar system that's off-site. So that you're still accessing renewable energy, and sometimes you can still see bill discounts depending on the program. So if you can't go solar at your home, you can always look into community solar. And I'm just going to repost the um, links to community solar in the chat, and as well it includes the other links to our website and other helpful resources as well. And I'll post that again later in the presentation just so you have um, visibility to those links again one more time. All right. So for solar, the system size is based on your consumption and also could be based on the available space you have, based on codes. There might need to be a certain amount of setback from for the roof. And then in our state, the average size solar system is 8 kilowatts. So solar is measured in kilowatt, and you'll see it written out as like 8 kW for an 8 kilowatt system. Um, that doesn't mean that your system will exactly be 8 kilowatts. It depends on what you're trying to do with your solar. Some folks will have a smaller system if they're just trying to offset a little of their usage. Um, And depending if they're pairing with solar and storage, they might have different system designs. Solar is highly customizable. And so when you do meet with a contractor, just sharing, what your goals are for your home so they can help match the system design to what you're looking for is really important. And then, so after looking at consumption, the available space, you might also have be part of an HOA, and HOAs can't prevent you from going solar. So they can't say, no, you can't have any solar because that's protected in our state, but they can restrict how the solar is installed on your roof. For example, they could say, oh, it can't be on the street facing side of your roof. And so, if you do have questions about that, if you are part of an HOA and running into issues, contractors have had experience with this before. And you can also always email us at info@solaroregon.org. And then we'll jump right into types of roofs. So, solar can work on many different roof types, from asphalt shingle to standing seam metal roofs. It just depends what type of roof you have will impact how the solar is installed on your roof. Also, for solar, it's going to be easier to install if you have a simple roof structure. So that example of a simple roof here, you can see it just has some uninterrupted continuous planes where an array can be installed. If you have a more complex roof or a really steeply pitched roof, that can impact your ability to go solar or increase your cost. Roof condition is one of the most important aspects of your home that will impact your ability to go solar. Most contractors' incentives require you to have at least 10 plus years of roof life, but your roof can actually, um, your roof life is usually 20 to 30 years, depending on what material you use for your roof. And solar panels usually last about 20 to 30 years, depending on the panels. So, if you were to install your panels on a roof that had, not much life left, then you would have to uninstall those panels to replace your roof and then reinstall those panels again. And you would have to pay costs for someone to do that and to reconnect your system. So, um, if you are re-roofing soon, that's a good time to look at solar because then you can match that roof life and the life of your panels. And then something to know as well, the structure under your roof can also impact your ability to go solar. There are certain codes for weight bearing and where solar can be installed. So if you have, let's say, an older roof that has rafters that are really farly placed, you might need to add some additional structural supports. But that's something that a contractor can help assess. And if they do need to uh, put in structural supports, they would likely need to consult an engineer to help do that. So that's just something to keep in mind if you are in an older home. All right, we're going to jump into battery storage next. It's important to know that your solar system by itself does not allow you to use solar electricity during a power outage. To do this, you'd need to add a battery. And that's why folks are pairing solar plus storage so that they can access that stored energy. The ability to use power when the grid is down is called energy resilience. And solar and battery storage are complementary technologies, as solar makes the battery more effective by recharging it. Um, and then also, your battery allows you to access your solar independently from the grid. Power outages can vary for their causes and frequency. Um, Frequent short outages can be caused by storms or these little cute guys here, squirrels, getting into wires and things. For solar, if you do get a lot of squirrels on your property that get into stuff, there is An add-on that you can add around your panels called a critter guard that can help with that. Some other causes for outages could be wildfire fires. We also have during wildfire season, we could have public safety power shutoffs due to fire risk. And then also here in the Pacific Northwest, there is a chance of a longer outage due to earthquakes. So it's important to think about what type of outage you're looking to withstand, and that would want to be considered when you're looking at the design of your system. When it comes to choosing a battery, there are many different options, uh, but due to manufacturer specifications, contractors often specialize in one brand or a couple brands. And then we do recommend getting multiple quotes from multiple contractors. You can compare, the different quotes and technology that they have quoted in your system, and that'll help you also to look at different brands of batteries. It's important to know that you cannot mix and match battery brands because they could have different chemistries. So you usually would stick within one brand, but you can have multiple batteries within that brand, and many brands have different size modules. So some smaller ones that might be 10 to 14 kilowatt hours, or even big ones that could be like 20 kilowatt hours. The average size is about one battery here in our state, and that's around like 10 to 13.5 kilowatt hours. And just to share, kilowatt hours is the unit that battery capacity is measured in. So you'll see that when you're looking at battery sizing. If you are thinking about powering motors or having a generator incorporated with your system, you do want to let your contractor know so that you can check your surge capacity. Any type of battery that you do end up adding and pairing with your solar system does need space, and there's certain requirements on where that can be installed. Sometimes it'll be installed on the outside of the home or in the garage. It's important to set your expectations properly about what a battery can do and what it cannot do. Even if you don't use much electricity, a single battery will almost never back up your entire home for a long time. So you can do what is called a partial backup. And so in this scenario, certain circuits in your home will receive power from the battery, but the rest of your home will lose power during an outage. And if you do want to do a whole home backup, you would need to pair multiple batteries. When you get a partial home backup, the way that you divide your home into sections that are backed up and sections that are not is based on the breakers in your electric panel. There are two options for how you can do this. You can have an essential loads panel, and so this would be a second panel where the contractors would take circuits and breakers that you want to back up and put them in that panel, the essential loads panel, and connect that to the battery so that when you have an outage, um, those essential loads that you decided to back up would receive power from your battery. The other way to do this is have a smart electric panel. This is a newer technology, but now it's been out for a while. But in this scenario, you could just replace your existing electric panel with a smart electric panel. And with that, it gives you some flexibility on loads and what you want to back up. And you can choose, what would be nice to have and what are essential. Loads that you want to back up in your house. There's also another option that some folks will look into doing instead of, if they have a more modern electrical panel, they might look at just adding some smart breakers and that can give them some flexibility as well. For battery sizing, you really want to consider two main questions. One of those is what needs power and for how long? Items most frequently chosen to back up include a refrigerator to keep food from spoiling, lights in a common area, a couple outlets so you can charge your laptop or cell phone. So by doing that partial backup, you would choose what those essential items are that you want to back up. We're going to jump right into incentives. So, the way this current investment tax credit currently stands is that you get 30% of your cost for your system, and that does include solar plus storage, or just solar, or just storage. And so, 30% of your cost. You get a tax credit for that. And so you do have to have tax liability to claim this credit. And it's pretty simple. You just have to file uh, another form when you do your taxes. If you are considering doing this and claiming the tax credit, we recommend working with your tax professional. We are not tax professionals here at Solar Oregon. We just like to share this information because it's for educational purposes, and you should know that you have this option available for you. And that being said, there are a few misconceptions on the internet about what is covered. One of those is that you can get this tax credit for replacing your roof, and that is false. So if you are just replacing a standard roof, that would not apply for this solar storage tax credit. And if you do have more tax specific questions, we definitely recommend reaching out to a tax professional. And if this draft of the bill does get voted on and approved, the way that bill is currently drafted, it would end, this tax credit would end at the end of this year. So it couldn't be claimed if you are installing a system after the end of this year. There are also incentives through the Energy Trust of Oregon. If you're a Portland General Electric customer or Pacific Power customer, you can access these Energy Trust incentives. You do have to work with an Energy Trust Trade Ally contractor, and we'll share a little bit more about that. But basically, the Trade Ally Network is a group of contractors that are pre-vetted. They're usually more local. They have a good reputation and install systems um, based on the standards that are required through Energy Trust of Oregon. And so you would need to work with one of them, and they would apply for this incentive upon your behalf. So if you're installing solar and storage, there's different credits or incentives for each of those. So Portland General Electric has $850 for solar, and then you can also apply for $350 per kilowatt hour for the battery storage, up to 4,200. And then Pacific Power has one for $950 for solar, and then for storage, $400 per kilowatt hour, up to $4,800. And just as important to know, incentives are subject to funding availability and can change, just like we're seeing with the federal tax credit right now. Beyond the federal tax credit, or ITC, and Energy Trust standard incentives that we just shared, there are also additional income qualified incentives for solar and storage. And you can scan that QR code to see if you qualify. This is on Energy Trust of Oregon's energytrust.org website. And the program's called Solar Within Reach. So I'm going to go ahead and put the links in the chat again. This has the link to Solar Within Reach if you are curious at looking at those additional income qualified incentives. And as with the other Energy Trust incentives, you do have to work with a Trade Ally contractor. So now that we've looked at the basics of solar and storage, there are different reasons that the cost can vary. Like we said, solar and storage are really customizable in the way that they can be installed and designed for your home. So that system size and design will impact the cost. Also, re-roofing and electrical upgrades can impact the cost. If you decide to add storage to an existing system, or add it later down the road, you might need to reconfigure some of the components in your system to incorporate that battery. And so that could be an additional cost. Your access to incentives will impact your cost, as well as if you are a grid tied system. Uh, when you interconnect to the grid, you have to fill out an application, and there's a fee for that as well. So, um, because it's so specific to where your home is and what the needs are for your home, the cost can range. But here is just an example. If we're assuming an 8 kilowatt solar system that's pairing home battery storage, one battery at 13.5 kilowatt hours. In the middle column, you can see the cost estimates if you're just installing solar. So just to install an 8 kilowatt system, and this is just an estimate, it'll range depending on what's needed to install solar on your home, but it could be around $32,000. And then if you work with a trade ally contractor, you can access the Energy Trust incentives if you are a PG or Pacific Power customer. In this example, we are using a Pacific Power customer as an example. So they could get $850 in incentives, and this would impact their out-of-pocket cost. So those Energy Trust incentives get applied for by the trade ally contractor and actually impact your out-of-pocket. Then after you install your system, you pay for your system, um, you can apply for the investment tax credit, and that is 30% of the cost of your solar and storage. So you would be applying for that when you file for your taxes, and you need tax liability, and so it would be taking that cost out of, what you owe for your taxes. And then you can see in the last column an example if you're doing solar paired with storage. If you're able to access income qualified incentives, that can also help you save additional money. And then, like we mentioned, typically if you are adding storage later or adding it to an already existing solar system, there could be some additional costs to incorporate that battery. Financing your system is really common as it's a large initial investment. So some homeowners can obtain a loan through their bank, in which they have an existing relationship, or maybe through their credit union. So it's good to check with the banks and credit unions you already work with. But some do not provide loans specifically tailored to solar. You can also ask your contractor because they may partner with a credit union or third-party broker that offers financing for solar. Um, as with any financial decision, it's really important to take your time and read through the terms of the financing, so make sure that you understand it and it makes sense for for your home. You want to look at some key things such as the monthly payment, how long are the loan terms, is there any penalty for paying early, and then also you want to also check any fees. So sometimes you might see additional fees on different loan structures. If you see dealer fees, sometimes those can be pretty high. So just making sure you really take your time to look at those options before signing a contract. Note that interest payments on your loan do not qualify for the tax credit. And yeah, if you do have a financial advisor that you have access to, you could also ask them once you get the loan terms and can kind of walk through that with a finance professional. All right, we're going to jump right into how you would select a contractor and what you would expect during the installation process. So besides offering incentives for solar and storage, Energy Trust also has that certification program for contractors. And so they have the Trade Ally Network for solar contractors. These contractors have been rigorously vetted, they're highly rated, and are the only contractors who can offer the Energy Trust of Oregon incentives. Um, they tend to be more local, have good reputations. We definitely recommend as you're reaching out to contractors, um, getting at least 3 quotes if you're able. If you're in a more rural part of the state, there might be less contractors that service that area. So trying to get at least, if you can at least get 2, but we definitely recommend 3 is better so that you can see, what system design they are offering you and the costs, and really be able to compare what option is best for you. Um, as with working with any type of contractors, um, there are a lot of contractors out there. And so, if you do run into a contractor that is knocking on your door or promising that solar is free, that's something you definitely want to be careful of. And solar is not free. It can definitely help you save money on your energy bill, but it's not free to install. And so you just want to make sure you're working with reputable contractors so you have a good experience. And they should also be a contractor who's um, willing to answer your questions and is responsive. So as you look for a contractor, those are some things to keep in mind. When you're ready to get quotes, Energy Trust actually has a bid request form on their website, which is really helpful. We've linked that in the chat a couple times, so you can grab that from there or also use this QR code. This online form is a quick form, takes about 3 to 5 minutes to complete, where you can put in your information, your address, what you're looking to do for your home, um, and then they'll actually connect you to trade ally contractors in your area so that you know that you're getting connected with a reputable contractor. And like we said, we recommend folks try to get at least 3 quotes. Once you've selected your contractor, reviewed the quote, and signed your contract, here is what you can expect for your installation process. Your contractor will handle the permitting. They'll apply for the Energy Trust of Oregon incentives upon your behalf. And remember, they have to be to trade ally to get those. They'll design your system. It's important to remember they'll need your signature on some documents. Um, They'll have to do the interconnection application as well, but this is something they're familiar with. Um, and then, although the system can design is usually pretty quick, some jurisdictions have longer permitting processes. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're in Multnomah County, the permitting there takes longer. They are working on bringing that timing down, so it has gotten better. If you're in other parts of the state, usually that permitting is a lot faster. Um, and then once you get your permits, it's time to install. Installation usually takes 1 to 4 days, and it's usually a pretty quick process. If you have a larger system or more complex, maybe you're adding multiple batteries, that can take some time. Um, and then once you are all installed, your contractor will also coordinate the installation of your new bidirectional meter if you're a grid tied system, and also schedule your interconnection with the utility. This usually takes a few weeks. And then once you're interconnected, your system will be producing clean and renewable power right from the sunlight falling on your property. Um, so we're also a member-based organization. So thank you to our current members. We appreciate you. And if you want to support our work, you can become a member or a volunteer. We have the link to our website and the links in the chat, as well as you can always email us at info@solaroregon.org if you have more questions. But we're going to jump into the Q&A now. So hopefully you all have been putting your questions in the Q&A. Um, Before I jump into those, I'm going to launch the last poll and just see how we did today. And this just helps us improve our webinar. So we appreciate you taking the time to let us know how we did. Great, thank you for that. All right, I'm going to take a look at the questions that we have got. All right, so the question is for net metering, and it was about net metering um, year and when it starts. That is then for PGE and Pacific Power, April 1st. And so your credits roll over month to month, but at the end of your billing cycle in March, anything you have not used will be donated to low-income customers. Thank you for attending today. This webinar will be posted on our YouTube channel. You can also view our other past webinars there as well. And keep an eye out for our Zero Energy Homes tour that is coming up in October. Thanks, everyone.